All right, let's talk about TMEA Etude number 2 this year, which is again from the Brandt book, Etude number 30, starting in measure 33. Got a beautiful little lyrical melody for the first, probably 2/3 of this, which I'll play for you in a second. We're gonna probably get interrupted by some band camp noises, some recordings down the hall, and the guard and dancers and things are practicing, the band's in the auditorium, so we're likely to hear that as well. But that's fine. Let me play through the lyrical section, and then I'm going to talk about today just the first little bit of that. Measure 33. Remember, when you're measuring your numbers, numbering your measures, to start at measure 33. It doesn't start at the beginning of this etude. So from 33 to the downbeat of 63 is where I'm going to focus on today. But I'll play from 33 to 80, where the lyrical section ends. And we'll talk about this later on, but as you can hear, I'm putting the slightest little hint of a ritarando at the end of that measure, 79 and 80 really. Maybe a little bit in the measure before, 78, and that quartuplet. But let's talk about a few things right off the bat. So 33 and 34, you have a C to an F, the interval of a perfect fourth, right? The F on trumpet, in addition to it being first valve, is going to have a tendency to be really high. So don't let that first interval be larger than the fourth that it should be. That's the Here Comes the Bride interval, right? Don't let it turn into kind of, and really kind of push on the sound and let it get high. You want to make sure that you're playing C just to the F, right? First of all, make sure that your C is resonant and in tune. And don't let that F crawl high. One way to make sure that the F is going to stay a little bit low is to use what we did in the last video a little bit, the fill in the blank thing. I would use C, D, E, F, just going up the scale, practice-wise going. So making sure that you have an actual fourth in that first interval. That will be important setting up the rest of the things. And then you have 3/8 again, which I didn't mention at the beginning of this, but in this case it's 3/8 notes in the bar. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The best way to count this though is not in 3. It's going to be in 1. Just 1, 1, 1, 1, because you have duplets. 1 and 1, which are just like regular eighth notes. In a regular 4/4, 3/4 measure, just count those 1 and or 1 te. Same thing with the fours, it's a division of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. Over the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. Right? Don't make a big deal out of those. Here comes the band warming up in marching band camp. So before we get too far away from what I was going to do, make sure that first interval is solid, the perfect fourth. And that when you move in 35, it's actually on the second eighth note of the measure. Ya da 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 2 3 1 2 3 ba. When you come down measure 36, that's FCA. That makes an F major arpeggio, right? So make sure that arpeggio is solid. A way to practice this first 4 measures or so would be to put the eighth note subdivision. Just make sure you're accounting for all those eighth notes and then go back in. And while we're talking about intonation, I don't want to overstress this, but it is important. At 35, don't let your G crawl. Get kind of nasal and high in pitch and sound quality as well. You want where the open and resonant, even though I'm not a singer. piano too literally at the beginning of this. Think of it more as a suggestion of pretty rather than soft. You don't want any force to the sound. You don't want any hurriedness to it. It's very leisurely, calm, just a beautiful kind of a gentle sound, but not necessarily, don't sacrifice the quality of sound for just the sheer volume of it. The volume is one aspect of it, but it's not nowhere near at the top of the list of most important things, as long as it's not very forceful and kind of in your face, right? Very calm, very gentle sound, that's all that means. I would literally think of the piano as a suggestion of pretty, right? And on the same token, if there is a forte in here, which it doesn't look like there is, but you can approach forte with some of your fermatas, I wouldn't think of that as loud, I would think of that as full, right? Pretty and full for those two things. Now the duplets we've talked about in 40, it's a division of two, 1 and 1, or 1, te, 1, right? Same thing in 43 and 44. Here's measure 40. That's one reason to count that in 1, the overall structure of 1, 1, 1, 1, te, 1. It really helps with the counting of those duplets. However, in 45 and 46, you do want that 3 subdivision again so that you can place the 8th note at the end of 46 on what would be the 3rd 8th note of the bar, and they're not going to be the same length as the 8th notes that occur in 43 and 44, right? Those are part of a duplet. The 8th note in measure 43 is part of the division of 3. So I would be thinking in my head while I'm playing 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, and 46. You want to make sure 1, 2, 3, 1 in 46, right? Then you have the duplet again. Ta, ta. And there's an A in 48 and 49. That's also going to have a tendency to be pretty high, so let that be kind of lower in pitch. That interval of a sixth, 6 notes between the C and the A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? The interval of a sixth. Make sure that that is the correct pitch-wise on both the C and the A. Not too high, and don't force the A. Using, really, I'm using my tongue to move my air forward, and I'm not overblowing, I'm not using more quantity of air, I'm not using more force or pressure or anything. I'm simply moving my air quicker, smaller, and faster. That would be another instance where I do a lot of fill in the blank in my practice session. C, D, E, F, G, A, just straight up a scale, right? Couple times right there, what I did was I stopped my air a little bit, kind of unintentionally, but it still stopped a little bit between the A's, between 48 and 49. And that's why I did it a third time. I don't want that air to go. I don't want any hesitation, anything. I just want this big singing sound. Well, not like that. Right? I tried to overdo it a little bit. Now, there's a crescendo written in 52. There's a decrescendo written in 50 into 51. Those are going to kind of happen naturally anyway. I would not work very hard at that, right? You're coming down between 49 and 50. You're coming down an octave anyway. It's going to sound softer, just the physics of the thing. Going up the scale in 52, that's also going to get a little fuller, just because that's the nature of the instrument, right? So don't work too hard on that crescendo going up 52. Just let it naturally occur. And then a nice open resonant G in 53, same thing for the F in 54, the G again in 55, the F again in 56. Wouldn't work again very hard at the crescendo in 55. That's kind of like a sigh. Into 56. That's going to naturally decay anyway, so you don't have to work too hard at loud, soft kind of things, right? It's going to sound a little more distant. The F is going to sound a little more distant than the G, as long as you put the proper stress on 55. Just let that a vocalist, an opera singer would. Not that I'm any kind of opera singer, but I would practice it that way, right? Practice singing it that way. Even if you're a terrible singer, it is really, really, really helpful. How would someone sing this? This is very reminiscent of an opera aria, right? If you don't know what that's supposed to sound like, go listen to some literature that you're not very familiar with. Find some recordings. You can do that for free on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. Listen to what do some of the more famous opera arias sound like? How is that quality of the voice? How are they phrasing? How are they using their dynamics? And then steal that and use it in your preparation of this etude in particular, right? So now we're at 56. We landed on the downbeat. It's a division of 3 eighth note to go into 57, which immediately turns into duplet, or in this case quadruplet, eighth notes. So the eighth notes in 57 are going to be, there's 4 of them over a space of 3, so they're going to be a little faster than the A at the end of 56, right? The end of 56 is the 1, 2, 3. It's on the 3rd eighth note there. I guess it's F, F, A. And I would definitely breathe before that, right? You're coming out of... And in 57, I'm thinking that division, like the counting of 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, or 1 T, teta, 1, whatever you want to count, 1 E, and 1. However you want to count that, it's the division of 4. Yum, bum, 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 ba, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, however you do that. Now there's a 2-bar decrescendo in 59 and 60 on the E, the steady E itself, that I would come down on a little bit just to show that it's going away from the peak of that phrase, which would be 58, right? And let that get a little gentler going 61 into 62. Now we can step on the gas pedal a little bit, 63 into 64. I don't know if I'd be getting to the peak of this lyrical section right there, but I am going to give it some gas pedal. I'm going to go at the high A. Right? Let me get rid of that water. Breathe in the duplet between the C and the C sharp. This is measure 63, right? Prepare 3 pickup notes, and 1, and A into 55. And I would put a little front, kind of a legato, using your tongue again. But I would not slur the notes in 63 and 64 simply because they do have the staccato marking underneath of the slur, which in my opinion would be more of a little legato tongue. There's kind of a front on the notes. It's definitely not, right? And it's also not going to be where everything is slurred. I would kind of place those very deliberately. That's what that articulation really, really would mean for me. In a lot of the performances, and a lot of singers, if you listen to that and you look at what they're singing, the text is a little different. So they would have some kind of, whatever language, the words would be such that they would articulate, quote unquote, articulate, da, 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 and then we, right? Whatever the words would be, they're going to be a little bit separated. Same for the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit of front on ya da da da. And this is measure 67, right? Now on 68, I will play the printed articulation, the slur, the G to the F, and then coming down the scale, I'll tongue there. But in 63, I'm going to tongue the C sharp like a do articulation. 64, I'm tonguing both of those with a do articulation. 67, same thing, right? Here's 63, beat the second half of 63. Take your time really getting into 70. You have those 2 Fs in a row. Make the second one a little bigger deal than the first. be subdividing 3 in measure 71. Ba-da, 1, 2, 3, 1, so that the G and the G sharp are 2, 3, 1. The pickups into 73 are actually in time, right? Keep that tempo moving, right? Whether you're counting in 1, whether you're counting in 3, when you get to the dotted quarter in 71, I would divide that into 3 so that 72 is not late and it's not slow. Here, once again, at 63, second half. And the last thing I'll say about that is the articulation at 68. I would put a lot of front on the descending scale there on the E, the D, the C, and the A. Where's my G? Releasing your tongue very quickly. Remember, on the articulation, a lot of us, you and I, have never spoken about this, but there's 2 motions that happen on an articulation, right? There's a strike of the tongue and there's a release of the tongue. Most people think that the sound happens on the strike, but the strike actually blocks the air. So the release of the tongue, a very quick release of the tongue, is what gives you that pop, the ping of the articulation. So I would release the tongue very quickly. On that thing is 68. Let me do one final time, 63, second half. Push on that A like I tried to do just there. Just let it sing. It's going to be plenty full. It's going to be plenty loud. You don't have to help it like I just did, right? Really just stay out of the way. Stay out of the way of the air. It's easier said than done. And we mess it up all the time. All of us do. But just stay relaxed, stay out of the way of the air, and good things will happen. We'll deal with that last couple measures. There's some things that I would like to talk about, but I don't want this video to be longer than it is. And we've got plenty of time, so I'll deal with the end of that, from 70 onward, a little more in another video. So that's it. Like, this to me is definitely a song of some kind. It's very reminiscent of a beautiful opera aria. Go listen to some of those. It will definitely help your preparation. The notes and rhythms, of course, are going to be different, but the style, what they're doing with the sound, the colors of sound, how are they shading some of the long notes? Are they doing crescendo into the next bar, maybe coming away from decrescendoing into the next bar? How are they using that to their advantage or disadvantage in some cases? How are they coloring the sound? Do all of the notes sound the same, or do they each have their own kind of individual shape and direction? Hopefully you can use that kind of stuff in your preparation for this trumpet etude. What are they doing with the dynamics? What are they doing with the phrases? There's so many things. How are they using quote unquote articulation? The text really determines the articulation for them. We don't have a text, but we can kind of make up things like that. Like I was talking about in 63 and 64, choose your own words there and just play whatever those words are. Okay? Phrase this very beautifully, very open, resonant, vibrant, singing song. And this is going to be very successful. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this is helpful. I have a tendency to ramble, so I'm trying to cover everything that I need to cover, and we'll do a second etude or a second video of this etude here very soon. All right, have a great day. Bye.